The air smelled of salt and old wood as Sergeant Maya Ramirez stepped off the bus. Her boots, still military-issued, hit the cracked pavement with a steady rhythm. It was almost midnight, and the small coastal town she had grown up in was quiet, except for the hum of distant waves and the occasional barking of dogs. Maya pulled the hood of her dark sweatshirt over her head and adjusted the heavy backpack slung over her shoulder. She was used to carrying much more weight in far harsher places, but tonight everything felt heavier. Not because of what was inside her bag, but because of what she was carrying in her heart. Maya hadn't been home in 2 years. Her last. Deployment had taken her far away, deep into a world of shadows and silence, where no one used real names and trust could be a deadly mistake. She had seen things people weren't meant to see, had done things most people would never understand. She didn't expect parades or welcome banners. In fact, she didn't want anyone to know she was back. She just wanted a quiet week with her younger brother, a few cold beers, and maybe some sleep. Real sleep, not the half-alert dozing that passed for rest in sniper nests and forward operating bases. She walked down the empty street toward her brother's house. He didn't know she was coming. She wanted to surprise him. He'd sent her a message weeks ago saying he missed her, asking when she was coming back. She hadn't replied. It wasn't safe to, not then, but now she was back. And for once she wasn't thinking about war or targets or escape plans. She was thinking about breakfast pancakes, about teasing her brother, and about walking on the beach without scanning rooftops for snipers. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since the flight. There was a gas station a block away with a small deli inside. She remembered it from years ago. It was the kind of place where the coffee was always stale, but the sandwiches weren't bad. She changed direction and walked toward it, the streetlights flickering above her like tired stars. When she reached the station, she noticed something strange. The front glass door was open, but no one stood behind the counter. A candy rack was tipped over, and a small cardboard display of sunglasses lay on the floor. A half-eaten hot dog sat on the counter, steam rising slowly from it. Her instincts kicked in immediately. She stepped back into the shadow near the door and lowered her breathing. Her eyes swept the interior, quiet, too quiet. A man's wallet lay open on the floor, cards scattered. Then she heard it. Footsteps, fast and uneven, behind the shelves. A figure darted past, carrying a duffel bag and a black hoodie. She didn't reach for her weapon. She didn't even move. She just observed. The man didn't see her. He burst out the back door and vanished into the alley. Moments later, she heard sirens. Great, she thought. Just my luck. 2 patrol cars skidded to a stop outside the station. Red and blue lights painted the walls in chaotic pulses. Officers jumped out, guns drawn. "You!" one of them shouted, pointing his flashlight straight into Maya's face. "Hands up, now!" She blinked into the blinding light. "I'm not involved. I just got here." "Hands where I can see them!" Maya raised her hands slowly, carefully. She didn't argue. She didn't move fast. She knew how quickly things could go wrong in situations like this. One officer came forward and patted her down. He frowned when he felt the hard metal parts through her backpack. "What's in the bag?" "Military gear. It's mine. I have ID." "Put it on the ground." She obeyed. He opened it and pulled out the contents. A disassembled M40 sniper rifle, a military GPS unit, a medical trauma kit, and a pair of night vision goggles. Everything was standard issue, perfectly legal. But to someone unfamiliar with Marine sniper kits, it probably looked like a terrorist's toolbox. "What is this? Who are you?" "I'm a Marine, Sergeant Maya Ramirez. Just got back from deployment. I'm on leave." "Where's your uniform?" "In the bag." "You don't look military." She stayed quiet. She knew that arguing never helped. Another officer stepped forward with her ID and stared at it. "This could be fake," he muttered. "It's not. Why do you have Arabic notes in here?" She sighed. It's from my last assignment, part of training. You speak Arabic? Yes. The officers exchanged glances. Suspicion hardened on their faces. One of them radioed something she couldn't hear. You're gonna need to come with us. Am I under arrest? Not yet. But we have questions. Maya knew her rights. She also knew that saying too much could put people in danger. Her missions were classified. Even mentioning some of the locations she had been could trigger an investigation or alert enemy groups watching American communications. The safest thing was to say less, but these officers didn't understand that. Ma'am, we're asking you again. Why were you near the store when the robbery happened? I was walking by. I stopped because I saw the door open. Why didn't you call 911? Old habit, I observe first. Observe? You think you're some kind of cop? No, she said, keeping her voice calm. I'm a Marine sniper. Observation is my job. That was the moment the tone changed. The lead officer's face tightened. His eyes narrowed. Get on the ground. Now. She didn't argue. She got on her knees, then laid down on her stomach, hands behind her head. The cold pavement pressed into her cheek. Her heart didn't race. She'd been in worse situations. But she felt something worse than fear. The deep sting of being treated like a criminal in her own country. They handcuffed her. Not gently. She didn't resist. As they pulled her to her feet and led her toward the cruiser, she noticed people across the street watching, phones held up, recording. She heard someone whisper, "Is she a terrorist?" She wanted to shout, "I've served 4 tours. I've bled for this country." But she didn't. She kept walking. At the station, things got worse. They placed her in an interrogation room, left her there for nearly 2 hours. Her hands still cuffed, her backpack on a metal table in front of her. An officer came in and asked the same questions again and again. Who do you work for? Where were you deployed? What's your mission? She said nothing. The officer grew frustrated. This isn't some spy movie, lady. You can't just sit there and act like this is all a mistake. She looked at him and replied evenly, I'm under orders. I can't discuss details without clearance. He scoffed. You think we don't deal with soldiers? You're not the first Marine to come through here. No, she said, but I might be the first sniper with black-level clearance. He didn't believe her. He left, slamming the door behind him. In another room, 2 detectives reviewed her belongings. One of them, younger than the rest, picked up a laminated document tucked in a hidden pouch. His eyes scanned it, then widened. He went to his computer and typed something into a secure government database. The result popped up. Red flagged, access restricted. He tried again using his supervisor's credentials. Again, blocked. Sir, he said to his partner, I think we need to call someone. Who? The base. Any base. I think we're in over our heads. Don't be dramatic. She's not special. The younger officer looked at the photo. On her military ID again. The same calm eyes, the same serious face. She's more than special, he muttered. She might be one of the deadliest women in the country. But no one listened to him. Back in the holding cell, Maya sat on the bench, hands resting in her lap. She wasn't angry. She wasn't scared. She was tired. Tired of being judged by her cover instead of her content. Tired of always hiding what she'd done to protect people who didn't even know her name. Tired of being silent when all she wanted to do was scream. She closed her eyes and leaned back against the wall. Memories came uninvited, of the mountains in Helmand, of the long waits in dusty hills, of the sound of her rifle breathing fire across kilometers. She thought of her spotter, gone now. She thought of the child she'd saved, the woman she'd carried to safety under gunfire. The day she lost 3 squad mates in one ambush, and still completed the mission. She remembered it all, but no one here did. No one here knew her story. Not yet. After the long wait in the cold holding cell, Maya was finally taken to a small, windowless interrogation room. The bright fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead, making the sterile room feel even more uncomfortable. Two officers entered. Detective Harris and Sergeant Collins, both looking serious and tired from the long night. They didn't waste time. Harris sat down across from Maya, his arms crossed. "We found some strange stuff in your bag, Sergeant. Arabic notes, military gear, encrypted phones. This isn't just some lost Marine on leave. What's going on?" Maya met his eyes calmly. "I was deployed overseas. Those notes are part of my mission files. It's classified. I can't talk about it." Harris sighed, leaning back in his chair. "We get it. You're trained to keep secrets. But you're here because something happened near that gas station. A robbery. And you were the only one around with a gun-shaped object." "I didn't commit any crime," she said simply. "I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time," Sergeant Collins added. "It doesn't look good when you refuse to answer questions. Are you hiding something? Maybe you're working with terrorists?" Maya's expression didn't change, but her voice hardened. "I'm a Marine sniper. My work is dangerous. I follow orders and sometimes I can't explain why. But I'm loyal to my country." Harris shook his head slowly. "Loyalty means nothing if you don't cooperate. You could be a threat right now." Maya felt a tight knot in her chest. She had faced worse dangers, but this was different. She wasn't fighting a visible enemy or trying to survive in a battlefield. She was fighting suspicion, misunderstanding, and fear, all directed at her. She decided to stay silent. Talking without clearance could compromise her team, her missions, and lives at risk. Hours passed. The officers questioned her again and again, but got little more than silence or vague answers. Every time they asked about her deployments, her role, or her contacts, she responded carefully, refusing to reveal classified details. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the confusion grew. The police department wasn't sure what to do. Maya's military ID was real, but the classified nature of her documents made it impossible to verify her story quickly. They didn't want to release someone who could be dangerous, but they also didn't want to hold a decorated Marine without cause. Detective Harris went through Maya's belongings carefully. The Arabic notes were handwritten, detailed, and filled with tactical sketches. The encrypted satellite phone was locked tight, inaccessible. They had no way to decode the messages. A junior officer, Officer Jacobs, was assigned to dig deeper. He was young and eager but had limited security clearance. He ran a few checks and found Maya's name in military databases, but her most recent records were classified at the highest level. Even the base nearest to where she said she'd been deployed had no public record of her presence. This made Jacobs more curious. Who was this woman? Why was she operating in such secrecy? And why had she been caught in a small town far from any military base? Jacobs asked his supervisor, Captain Morgan, for permission to contact military intelligence directly. Morgan frowned. "That's above our pay grade. We have to handle this ourselves until they send someone." The hours dragged on. Maya was allowed little food or water. Her wrists were sore from the handcuffs. The officers grew more impatient, their questions sharper, their tone more accusing. One officer asked her why she had Arabic phrases written in her notebook. "Are you spying for someone?" "No," she said firmly. "I speak the language, because I was trained to. It helps me understand the enemy." "But that doesn't explain why you were here with all this gear," the officer said, waving the disassembled rifle. Maya explained she had brought her gear home for cleaning and inspection. Military weapons have strict transport laws, and everything was legal and properly stored. The officers were skeptical. To them, a woman carrying a sniper rifle and secret notes looked suspicious. They had never dealt with someone like her before. Outside, the interrogation room, Officer Jacobs kept searching. He called a few contacts he had in the military police and tried to get more information about Maya's deployments. He finally got through to a staff sergeant at the Marine base. The conversation was tense, but revealing. "Yes, Sergeant Ramirez is an elite sniper with us," the staff sergeant confirmed. "She's been on several classified missions in the Middle East, mostly reconnaissance and high-value target elimination." Jacobs's eyes widened. "She's involved in secret operations?" "Exactly. Most of her deployments don't appear in standard records. We have to keep her activities under wraps for her protection and the success of the missions." Jacobs passed this information up the chain of command. The precinct captain was informed, but he was skeptical. "We can't just release her because of some vague military secrecy," he said. "We need hard proof." The captain ordered more background checks. Meanwhile, the media had started picking up the story. Local news reported the arrest of a mysterious woman with a military weapon, fueling rumors of terrorism. Maya's situation was becoming a public relations nightmare. Back in the cell, Maya thought about her team overseas. She wondered if they knew she was detained. If the enemy was watching, they could use this as an opportunity to attack or sabotage missions. She hated feeling powerless. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Her training taught her to stay calm under pressure. She reminded herself that this too would pass. She thought about her spotter, Corporal James Lee. He was the only person who truly understood her work. They had been through countless missions together, reading each other's signals silently, from hundreds of meters apart. James had always told her, "You don't have to say a word. Your actions speak louder." Maya clung to that thought. Hours later, a new officer arrived. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Briggs, a military liaison sent by the base, appeared in the precinct. She had been notified of the arrest and came prepared. Briggs quickly reviewed Maya's documents and spoke with the police captain. "This Marine is legitimate," Briggs said firmly. "She is under strict confidentiality agreements and cannot disclose details without authorization. We request her immediate release." The captain hesitated but knew better than to argue with military authority. He ordered Maya's handcuffs removed and the interrogation to end. Maya stood quietly, exhausted but relieved. She knew this was only the beginning. She would have to explain her side to the general, to military intelligence, and possibly to the public. As she walked out of the station, Maya felt the weight of the night lift slightly. But deep down, she knew trust was fragile. And sometimes, even heroes have to fight for it. The confusion at the small-town police station had reached a boiling point. The officers were overwhelmed and unsure of how to proceed. Sergeant Maya Ramirez sat quietly in a sparse holding room, her mind racing as she waited for any sign of what would come next. The hours passed slowly, and the heavy burden of silence pressed on her like a weight. Outside, the local police chief paced nervously. The situation was far from routine. They had arrested a woman carrying military gear, classified documents, and an encrypted phone. They knew she was a Marine. The ID confirmed it. But why was she acting so secretive? And why was the military not responding quickly to confirm her identity? The chief decided it was time to escalate the issue. He called the nearby Marine base, but the response was frustrating. The person answering seemed reluctant to provide information and kept transferring the call. Each transfer was met with vague answers and questions about who was calling and why. The local authorities were left in a frustrating limbo. Meanwhile, Maya knew the delay was dangerous. Her missions were classified for a reason. If word spread without context, it could put innocent lives at risk. She also worried about the perception people had of her. To most, she was just a suspicious woman with weapons and notes. To her, she was a soldier doing her duty. Back at the Marine base, General Marcus L. Trent was reviewing his schedule late that night when his aide informed him of the situation. Maya Ramirez, one of his most trusted snipers, had been arrested far from the battlefield under suspicious circumstances. He knew her well. She had saved his son's life during a covert operation years ago. The news stunned him. Without hesitation, the general pushed aside his other responsibilities. This was a personal matter. He instructed his staff to arrange immediate clearance and demanded a full report on Maya's situation. Knowing how complicated and delicate these cases were, he prepared to go himself. The general's office was filled with aides, advisors, and intelligence officers. They scrambled to locate the documents and operational reports that confirmed Maya's identity and missions. But many of these files were classified beyond even their reach, stored in the highest security vaults. This was frustrating but not surprising. Maya's work was intentionally hidden from most military personnel. The fewer people who knew her true role, the safer everyone was. The general, however, was determined. He personally reached out to the Secretary of Defense, explaining the urgency and importance of resolving the misunderstanding. The Secretary approved emergency clearance for Maya and ordered cooperation with local law enforcement. With paperwork finally in order, General Trent made arrangements to travel immediately to the town where Maya was held. The trip was urgent, but he insisted on making the journey himself. For him, this was not just a matter of duty. It was about honor and respect for a soldier who had risked everything. As the general prepared to leave, he reflected on Maya's career. She was one of the most skilled marksmen in the Corps, a woman who had earned respect through quiet courage and unyielding discipline. Her missions often required her to operate alone, far behind enemy lines, making split-second decisions that saved countless lives. Her story was known only to a few, and even fewer understood the burden she carried. To the outside world, she was invisible. Now she was suddenly in the spotlight for reasons she never wanted. The general boarded a military helicopter, the rotors chopping the air as it lifted off toward the small town. His mind raced with thoughts. How had this happened? How had a soldier so devoted and respected been mistaken for a criminal? What could he do to fix this quickly and restore dignity? Back at the police station, officers noticed the arrival of a convoy, vehicles marked with military insignia. The tension in the room grew. Whispers circulated. Who could it be? What now? The doors swung open, and General Marcus L. Trent entered, tall and commanding in his four-star uniform. His presence alone quieted the room. Officers who had been suspicious moments ago now stood at attention. Without hesitation, the general walked straight to Maya's holding cell. The guard stepped aside, recognizing the importance of the visitor. Maya looked up, surprised but relieved. The general smiled warmly and nodded. "Sergeant Ramirez, it's good to see you." She returned the salute, feeling a wave of emotion she had kept bottled inside for so long. The general then turned to the assembled officers. His voice was calm, but firm. "You have made a mistake. Sergeant Ramirez is a Marine sniper who has served this country with honor. Your arrest was based on misunderstanding and lack of knowledge about her work." The officers listened, some shifting uncomfortably. The general continued. "I apologize for the trouble caused, but I also want to make it clear that she deserves your respect, not suspicion." He ordered the immediate release of Maya and instructed the police chief to ensure her record was cleared of any charges related to the arrest. After the formalities, the general spent time speaking privately with Maya. He asked about her well-being, listened to her account, and promised to take steps to prevent such incidents in the future. Maya was grateful but exhausted. She knew this was only the start of the journey to rebuild trust and correct misunderstandings. As the general prepared to leave, he addressed the room again. "Let this be a lesson. We must do better to recognize the sacrifices made by our service members. We must remember that behind every uniform is a story of courage." The officers nodded, the atmosphere shifting from tension to respect. Outside, the media had gathered, eager to capture the moment. The general allowed a brief statement, emphasizing the importance of support for veterans and active duty soldiers. Maya stayed quiet, watching from the side. She wasn't interested in fame or attention. She just wanted to do her job and protect her country in peace. As the helicopter lifted off, carrying the general away, Maya took a deep breath. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, she felt hope. After General Trent's intervention, Maya Ramirez was finally released from the local police station. But freedom did not bring instant peace. The events of the past days had shaken her deeply. She stepped out into the fresh air, feeling the sunlight warm her face, yet inside, a storm of thoughts raged. Maya knew the ordeal was not over. The arrest had made headlines. Local newspapers and social media were buzzing with stories, some sympathetic, many filled with suspicion and misinformation. Her name was everywhere now, and not always in a good way. Despite the general's apology and official clearance, the damage was done. People who didn't know her story judged her harshly. Some called her a threat. Others whispered conspiracy, theories about secret missions gone wrong. Maya understood that the public's fear was born from ignorance. War and secrecy often breed suspicion. When you keep something hidden to protect lives, you also risk losing the trust of those you protect. After her release, Maya was escorted by military personnel back to a secure facility. The place was a stark contrast to the small-town police station, high-tech, heavily guarded and buzzing with activity. This was where she would finally be able to explain her side of the story, but only to those with the right clearance. Inside the facility, Maya met with officers from military intelligence. They asked her to recount everything that had happened, before and after the arrest, from the moment she left her base to the time she was detained. Maya was careful. She gave them enough details to clarify the misunderstandings, but remained silent on the classified aspects of her missions. She wanted to protect her teammates and the operation's success. The intelligence officers nodded. They understood her silence. These missions were delicate, sometimes operating in hostile territories where one wrong move could lead to disaster. While Maya cooperated, she also felt frustration. She had hoped her record and reputation would shield her from suspicion. Instead, the arrest had exposed weaknesses in how military and civilian agencies communicated about covert operatives. Military intelligence agreed. They promised to review protocols to prevent such incidents in the future, especially for soldiers engaged in secret operations. Meanwhile, Maya was scheduled to meet with a panel of high-ranking officials to discuss what happened and to determine how to support her going forward. On the day of the meeting, Maya walked into a large conference room. Around the table sat generals, intelligence directors, and legal advisors. Their expressions were serious, but not hostile. The meeting began with presentations about the arrest, the public reaction, and the risks posed to military operations and personnel. One general spoke. Sergeant Ramirez's arrest could have compromised ongoing missions. The misinformation in the media is dangerous. We must act quickly to restore confidence. Another officer added, "We need to develop better systems to identify and protect our covert operatives, especially when they're off-duty or traveling." Maya listened quietly, realizing this was not just about her. It was about a larger problem in how the military managed secrecy and public safety. When it was her turn to speak, she described the confusion she experienced during the arrest. She explained how trained soldiers sometimes have to operate in civilian spaces without revealing their roles. She told them about the importance of protecting classified information, even from law enforcement. She spoke honestly about her fears of being misunderstood or labeled a criminal because of her work. The room fell silent for a moment. Then a senior intelligence officer responded, "Your words highlight the real challenges we face. We owe you, and all operatives, better support." Maya felt a small sense of relief. Her story was being heard. After the meeting, Maya was offered counseling and support services. The military wanted to ensure her well-being and to help her reintegrate smoothly. She appreciated the offer, but also knew she had to be strong. Her training had prepared her for danger, but not for the loneliness of being doubted. Outside the official meetings, Maya reconnected with her spotter and closest friend, Corporal James Lee. He had been worried since hearing the news. Their reunion was quiet but powerful. They didn't need many words. Their bond was built on trust and shared experiences. James listened as Maya told him about the arrest and the strange feeling of being seen as a threat rather than a protector. James said, "You've saved lives, Maya. Don't forget that. People might not understand now, but you've done your duty." Maya smiled faintly. "Thanks, James. I needed to hear that." In the days that followed, Maya tried to return to a routine, but it was difficult. The media attention had not faded. Reporters sought interviews. Strangers approached her on the street. The scrutiny was exhausting. Maya decided to keep a low profile, focusing on physical training and preparing for her next deployment. Her commanding officers praised her resilience and professionalism. They reminded her that her service was valued and that the military stood behind her. Still, Maya felt the weight of the arrest lingered. She realized the incident had changed her. It made her question how much of herself she could share with the world, how to balance secrecy with trust. One evening, Maya sat alone watching the sunset. She thought about her journey, from a young recruit with big dreams to a skilled sniper operating in shadows, to a woman caught in a storm of misunderstanding. She felt a renewed determination. She would keep serving her country, but she would also work to build bridges between the military and civilians, to help others understand the sacrifices made by those in secret roles. Maya knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to face it. Her story was no longer just about survival or combat. It was about courage, resilience, and the hope that one day those who protect us in silence would be seen with respect and gratitude. The days following Maya Ramirez's release were filled with a mixture of relief, reflection, and renewed purpose. Although the immediate danger of being wrongly accused was over, Maya knew her journey was far from finished. The incident had left a mark on her life and career, but it also gave her a new mission, one that extended beyond the battlefield. Maya found herself back at the military base where things felt familiar, yet different. The base buzzed with activity as always, soldiers training, officers planning missions, and the hum of helicopters overhead. But for Maya, the world seemed more complicated now. She was no longer just a soldier. She was someone who had been seen through the eyes of the public, judged and misunderstood. That experience changed her perspective. Her commanding officer welcomed her back warmly. "We're glad you're safe, Sergeant," he said. "You've been through a lot. The whole Corps is behind you." Maya appreciated the support. It reminded her that despite the turmoil, she still belonged to a team, a family bound by loyalty and shared sacrifice. The military began to recognize that Maya's case was a wake-up call. They realized the systems in place to protect covert operatives, like her, were not strong enough. There were gaps in communication between military and civilian authorities, weaknesses that could lead to dangerous misunderstandings in the future. To address this, Maya was invited to join a special task force aimed at improving these protocols. The group included military officials, intelligence officers, and even representatives from civilian law enforcement. Their goal was to create better ways to identify and protect undercover operatives without compromising their missions. Maya was hesitant at first. She had spent years in the field, focused on missions that required silence and invisibility. Now she was being asked to step into a new role, one that involved talking, explaining, and sometimes exposing parts of her secret world. But she understood the importance. If her experience could prevent another soldier from being wrongly accused, if it could help build trust between military and civilian agencies, it was worth it. The task force meetings were intense and sometimes frustrating. There were many differing opinions. Some officers wanted stricter security and less disclosure. Others pushed for more transparency to ease public fears. Maya often found herself in the middle, advocating for a balance that respected operational secrecy but also recognized the need for better communication. Her insights were valuable. She spoke about the challenges of being a covert operative in everyday life, how even simple actions could be misunderstood, how constant vigilance was necessary not just against enemies, but also against suspicion from those she was supposed to protect. One day, during a particularly long meeting, Maya shared a story from her deployment. She told the group about a mission where she and her spotter had to move through a crowded marketplace, blending in with civilians while watching for threats. She explained how every move had to be calculated, how one wrong signal could jeopardize everything. Her story helped the group understand the realities of covert work. It wasn't just about combat. It was about trust, discretion, and navigating a world that often didn't understand the sacrifices involved. Outside the meetings, Maya continued her training. Her skills as a sniper were sharp, and her physical fitness was top-notch. But she also spent time learning new things about law enforcement protocols, about how civilian agencies operated, and about public relations. She realized that being a soldier today meant more than just fighting battles. It meant being an ambassador, a bridge between two worlds that often seemed divided. Her efforts began to show results. New identification systems were developed, allowing military operatives to verify their identities quickly and securely when dealing with civilian authorities. Training programs were created for police officers to help them recognize and interact with covert operatives respectfully and safely. Maya also worked with veteran organizations to raise awareness about the challenges faced by service members who lived in the shadows. She spoke at events and workshops, sharing her story and encouraging others to support those who served in silence. Her message was clear. Service members who work covertly deserve respect and protection, not suspicion and fear. As time went on, Maya grew more confident in her new role. She found satisfaction in making a difference beyond the battlefield. She still missed the adrenaline and focus of missions, but she knew this work was just as important. One afternoon, Maya received a call from General Marcus Trent. The general had followed her progress closely and wanted to meet. When they met, the general praised Maya's courage and dedication. "You've turned a difficult situation into an opportunity for change," he said. "That's the mark of a true leader." They talked about the future of covert operations and how soldiers like Maya could continue to serve in evolving ways. The conversation inspired Maya. She realized that her story was not just about survival or misunderstanding. It was about growth, leadership, and hope. Despite the progress, Maya remained grounded. She knew there would always be challenges ahead. The world was complicated, and the line between friend and foe was often blurred. But she was ready. She had faced danger, suspicion, and isolation, and come through stronger. Her commitment to her country and her comrades was unwavering. One evening, as she prepared for a new deployment, Maya stood on the base's observation deck, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painted with warm hues of orange and pink. She thought about the journey she had traveled, from a young recruit to an elite sniper, from a prisoner to a symbol of resilience. Her heart was filled with gratitude for the people who stood by her, for the lessons learned, and for the chance to keep serving. Maya knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to walk it, one step at a time, with courage and honor. Her story was far from over.